What the fuck is that, Vinny Beedle?
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Scumbag Vinny. These folks right here have the biggest scam going. And even the guys I did take money from that were new in the game, I gave them experiences that they would never have gotten, man. And people did. Scumbag Vinny, bro.
And there was like 8 comics on the show, and they all sucked. And he got on stage, and he was like, "Vinny, did you just stop at a red light and say, hey, you want to open for Artie Lang tonight?"
Vinny Beedle's a good man, and we'll be back.
Well, I used to go to concerts when I was a teenager, and I would sell fake tickets to events.
I've made it clear I have no problem that you scammed numerous people. No.
It's such an important part of my background.
If somebody's trying to get into comedy and somebody rips them off so bad that they have to quit comedy, you've done them a favor.
Yeah. This movie needed Vinny Beedle to show up in like a stolen Ford Taurus. What up, it's Bam Margera. Go listen to the best podcast in the world, SCUMTOWN.
Vinny Beedle is who? Compton?
Oh yeah, Compton ass. You want a fresh piece of shit, man.
You're a bigger scumbag than Vinny Beedle. Yeah, man.
Vinny, I want you to take down the president of town now, or I will have the legal authorities get involved with you.
Now that I found out that this whole thing was a scam, I kind of really like him.
Welcome everybody back.
What episode is it? I'm losing track, Vinny.
I think this is number 9.
Almost at number
Pretty
10.
sure. I know. It's already been quite a journey, man.
When we started the show, With Apologies had 10 episodes left. We were on episode 1. We're on our 10th episode of Scam with Vinny, and With Apologies still has 17 episodes left somehow. So, time moves in a weird way when you're scamming with Vinny Beedle.
It does. It actually just feels like With Apologies is in its own universe where time is just goes differently. Like for some reason you guys are going backwards in time.
By the end, you'll figure out that we were right all along, and Ian Ellis really was the funniest comedian ever. We just never knew it. You couldn't tell.
I think Ian's pretty funny. I do think Ian's pretty funny. Ian to me though is kind of like a little, like a not a little. He's like a brother though in a way that, like when we were on With Apologies this week, and as soon as Mr. Science Entertainment came on his show, you could just see him start to kiss ass, you know, and it's like, damn, dude. I mean, he ain't even that he ain't even famous. He's just the guy who talks about famous people and has a lot of people listening, you know.
Ian Ellis has a very strict loyalties that sometimes like blends into fandom.
Well, I got smashed supposedly this week, so if you guys want to go check that out, With Apologies on YouTube on the Ian Ellis LLC channel.
It was fun. We
fun.
tried getting a guy a lawyer, and he pretty much spit in our face and took it out on Vinny as a result.
Well, I mean, I kind of came at him pretty hard about the Artie stuff, which was a while ago, but it's not like I'm sitting here looking for the guy. It's just like, when you just, something happens and you're like, if I ever talk to that guy, I know I have something I got to say to him, and that's pretty much how that went.
That would be like when you saw, imagine if you saw Bam Margera and he said he wanted to talk about the Castle Bam money, and then when you came to meet him, he was throwing pies at your face. That's pretty much the situation you walked into. I don't think you realized that there was never going to be a discussion with, Kyle from Sands Entertainment. It was only going to be him throwing pies in your face. And I probably should have brought that up beforehand. I thought he was going to take the lawyer. So that's where I went wrong. I should have known he wasn't going to take the lawyer.
But either way, I got to say I did enjoy it just because, when it comes to your guys' like multiverse of people who listen to the show, I went from being somebody that was going to be on that episode as like a little side character to like being what it was about, So I kind of take a little pride in that.
Yeah, everyone was asking, who is Vinny Beedle for a change? So that was fun. A lot of people got to meet the scumbag version of Vinny Beedle, some would say.
And what's funny is that he totally was like, he had no idea. Like he said, I don't know who you are and you have no views or nothing. But then as soon as he YouTubes me, like there is that Vinny the Scumbag video that now is at like 240,000 views. And the reason I bring it up is that video has been circulating now for over a year. And as it was climbing to 20, 30, 50, 100,000 views, I was like, wow, that's amazing. And it's not my channel, but the video is obviously about me. And I just thought, oh, well, it's got to stop at some point, right? Well, this video just keeps climbing. So I have this feeling that as time goes on, SCUMTOWN fans keep finding that video.
Well, it got to a point too, Vinny, where I actually, when I first made Viva La Scam on the LLC channel, you were like, I had never heard of you before. That was your like birth to me. And so when I made Viva La Scam, when I made that video, the documentary, I kind of made you like a small part of it, not really understanding the full scope of things. And then I actually went back like a year ago and I changed the title, like the graphic art and the title of the video to have you in it. Because you actually got so much more famous. I was like, Vinny's more famous than Viva La Scam is now. Like, I actually need to clout chase him, even though this is the video where he comes from. So you definitely have there's a lasting Beedle sting, some would say.
It's strange because, like, all in that period of time, a lot of different things were happening to get my eyes out there to the public. So I kind of became like almost like one of those actors that has one scene in every movie, but you have no idea what his name is, but you know his face. My name became that, not my face, a little bit with my voice, not so much with what I do in the entertainment business, but my name so much. Like, I just remember, posting a lot about Bam on my TikTok page and having that blow up, but also using my hashtag scumbag. And there are random people that just use the hashtag now because it's over 10 million views. But my wife started a TikTok account and she started posting videos of herself and then got bored. She started posting videos of me when she would get mad at me, like embarrassing ones of me on the toilet or me like acting like a complete idiot or something. And there was one video that was completely ridiculous that got over 6 million views on her TikTok account. And it was just me standing in a broken hurricane simulator at Busch Gardens. And so there's just fat, ugly, bald guys in this, hurricane simulator and nothing's happening, and people are just laughing at me and making fun of me. But so many people, I've been seen on the street wearing the shirt that I was wearing in that video, which is a shirt that I bought from Walmart like 10 years ago, and it's a cat in jail. And what's strange is that, like, if I wear that shirt, there are people that look at me sometimes, like, they're like, I've seen him somewhere, Right.
Well, there's like a 1 in fucking, like, 180 chance 6 million people have seen that video that someone you're walking past saw that video on TikTok.
Or something.
A couple 100 million people in America, so.
Now, what's strange is when I was tricking Bam with his Cameo account a couple years ago, there's a video of Bam like introducing himself to Cameo on his main account. And when I first seen the video, he's wearing the same exact t-shirt that I was wearing in the TikTok video. Now, I've had this shirt for 10 years, and me and my wife had moved to Florida. And I remember seeing the Cameo account, and I said, Jess, there's no way Bam shops at Walmart for. I stayed at his house a ton of times. I had to have the shirt here, and we laughed about it. Like, is this guy who's like my friend and a millionaire wearing one of my $5 Walmart t-shirts,
Bam Margera can't tell the difference. He just buys things. So if it's in his house, he assumes it's like really,
it's his, or it's like really
bougie.
Expensive cat in jail t-shirt, So I'm like, it has to be mine. But right before we made the video that got 6 million views, my wife found it in a suitcase we had in our closet. And it was at that moment I was like, get out of here. What are the odds that me and this guy both have the same t-shirt? Of course, Walmart's a huge company. There's good odds of that. But me and Bam and both having a t-shirt with a cat that's locked up in jail, I don't really get it.
You're just a couple of cool cats trying to break out the system, Vinny. It's symbolic.
Maybe, I don't know. In other news, I did see a TMZ article today that Bam has finally settled his lawsuit with Jackass Forever.
Right. And so if Bam's still in rehab, I am interested. How does he settle a lawsuit from rehab? Maybe that's the best place for him to settle it.
I think when it comes to Bam's legal matters, they're just being handled by his lawyer and, whatever his conservatorship is right now. So I don't think he has any real say, except they probably, at this point, he probably trusts. I know from experience being in some legal trouble with Bam that, his lawyer would call me. And there was one time in particular where, Bam had canceled a few tours on me. And the last one that he did cancel, his manager called me and was like, this is the first time you sent us a contract and kind of have us dead to rights. We got to pay you for canceling this. And I was fucking happy because I lost over $100,000 working with this guy. So I'm like, if I can get 15 grand back here, this would be great. And I remember just calling his lawyer, who they told me to call, and he was gonna, cut me a check. And he asked me like 10 questions, and after I answered him, he's like, "Yeah, I would rather take this to court. I'm not gonna pay you." And it wasn't up to Bam. Like, Bam wanted to pay me, but his lawyer was like, "Nah, you don't have a good enough case. I can beat you. I'd rather Bam keep his money, and I'll just fight it." And I was like, "Damn."
Damn, he's that confident. He's like, "Take me to court, Vinny Beedle. I don't care whose mafia family you're a part of."
Exactly. But again, it wasn't something like so I know that, they probably just settled it with his team.
That's a good thing then, at least for Bam, because that means he's got a bit of a scumbag scamming lawyer that probably didn't just settle the case. He probably got Bam something out of it. So hopefully he got some of that $5 million back for a movie or something.
Well, settling the case, actually, that means that they settled out of court, meaning Jackass did pay him. So the terms are not to be discussed because they probably would be embarrassed to announce how much money they have to pay Bam from this. But I'm assuming it's somewhere between $7 and $10 million. And the reason I say that is, I think they offered him between 3 and 5, and he declined it months ago. Last time we spoke, if they're gonna, if he has like rights to the lawsuit, they settled. That means they had a chance to lose, actually, which could have cost them a hell of a lot more. So they decided to pay him off. And now I could be wrong about the numbers, but that's pretty much what I believe it to be. Oh. And if it is that much money, I mean, all and well and great for him. Obviously, him and his family will be set up forever. The wild thing is, a few weeks ago, when his family started to go visit him, a phone number that he had that I was in contact with him for a while, it's kind of like I've gone green on it now, like, like to where the phone's off or I'm blocked from the number. And there was nothing really sketchy going on between me and Bam. I would just, the last like few times we talked was, "Hey, how you doing? Keep your head up," that kind of thing. But I kind of tested the waters today, and I messaged a skater I know that's supposed to be helping Bam produce like one of his films that he's doing. And basically the plans that Bam had told me about are probably falling apart at this point. I mean, he's got all the money he needs. He won the lawsuit from Jackass. He sold one of his houses. He's basically, I wouldn't call him better, but he's the best he's been in a very, very long time. So I am happy about that. It would just be nice to get paid the money I'm owed, which I don't know if it's going to happen. He promised me it would. He started to, and it's like, he started to pay me back, and but the thing is that I believe that they got hold of that phone and kind of took my number off of it, because I talked to this kid and he's like, "Yeah, I talked to Bam last week. He's doing great." So it's like, okay, so he's still talking to people on that number. But I haven't attempted to visit him in rehab because he's in rehab. I'm not going to go and try to upset or frustrate that process by any means.
You're not going to go try to bust him out again?
A lot of times when he sees me, he starts to think about, touring, to be honest. That's exactly what he thinks about. So, some of the time anyway. And so I think that they're fearful that he'll want to get out and go and be around the nightlife scene, which can get him to the point of drinking again, which none of us want.
Good news, at least from the Bam camp. All we're waiting on now is for him to get out of rehab. We'll see what happens. I have this theory that Bam is going to come across that Sam Hyde character at some point. And Wrecking Ball is famously a little hanger-on of Sam Hyde. And,
That's
you and
pretty
Wrecking
cool.
Ball.
I didn't know. Yeah, well.
So, I feel like we're destined. Team Bam is destined to run into Team Sam Hyde, is what I'm saying.
It could happen, man. I would love it. I mean, like I said, I am a fan of Wrecking. It's just funny, though, at one point, he was just like, "You and Bam will never happen. Do you understand me?" Like, he was trying to drill it in my head that there was no, like, Batman and Robin situation going on, But I feel like Bam has that kind of relationship with a lot of people. He has that rub off,
Yeah, well, he's definitely someone, when you meet them, you probably feel like you're elevated. It's not like just meeting a celebrity, like meeting Bam is like meeting a superstar. You're like, "Oh, wow, this is how he does it? I can do it too." Like, you just learn stuff.
I just remember going around when there would be a lot of people in the room or a lot of people at a skate ramp when I would show up, and he would pretty much stop whatever he was doing to come and talk with me. So it was like, there was a different energy with us than there was with other folks. Also, I'm not a skater or involved in that scene at all. So the fact that I am as much as I was alarming to some of the people in the skate community.
So, Vinny, did you ever tell the story on the show about like the Viva La Scam event? What was your part in that, and how did that end up being in like a warehouse somewhere in Pennsylvania?
Okay, so I would love to tell this story. Basically, I told you the story about how I met Bam. I already went to jail. I got a call from Bam's manager, and I drove to Detroit, and we did a show together. After that show, I called Bam's manager and asked him when would be the next time that I can come around Bam. And he told me my best bet, because I'm in Connecticut, would be just to drive straight to Bam's house. So I drove to Bam's house by myself. They let me through the gate, and I walked into his skate ramp. And like I said, he was building the ramp at the time and had about 30 or 40 people in there. And as soon as I walked in, he just stopped the entire like construction of this ramp and just ran down and gave me a hug and was like, "What's up? You know, I've been telling everybody about the show and how you saved my ass and blah, 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 blah." And we're chatting for a while, and he's like, "So what are you doing here?" And I'm like, "You know, man, I wanted to sit and talk with you about doing more shows." He's like, "Great." And we went out to eat. And a comedian that I brought with me, his name's Rodney Norman. He's a really awesome dude. He's been doing comedy for a very long time. He's an older guy. And he actually, when we walked into this restaurant that Bam, his girl, his whole team, you know, his friends and shit, we went to his tavern near his house, and my buddy Rodney prepaid for the entire meal. Boss did not know what was happening, you know, just such a boss move. I had no idea, so I ended up pitching Bam all these ideas about working together on this tour, and he was totally with it. And then he went outside. I'll just never forget him going outside and during the meal, and he's like having these cigarettes and chain smoking, and he was like stressing whether or not he was going to have me be that person. And there's 10 of his friends at the table who would probably love to have the opportunity to do that job, but it was me who came and was presenting the idea to him. And I just remember him coming out, and Nikki, his wife, followed him out, and she came back inside with this big smile on her face. And she said, "He's very nervous, but I want to let you know that he's all in with you, and he wants you to be the one to put this tour together." And it was just like, that was a really amazing moment. You know, just to pitch a legend, to pitch a guy who's got more money than I'll ever see in my life, and to win him over was an awesome moment. And it was at that point that we started to plan shows, and I would be at the castle on and off and at his other house on and off for the next few months. And he was telling me about this party that they had in December. Now, the party that they had that previous December, the one that people did go to, I don't know if you ever seen YouTube videos of it with like the thousands of people that showed up to his house.
Yeah, I remember right before Viva La Scam, Bam was like throwing parties at the castle.
So he threw this party, and I had a bunch of people from my town in East Haven, Connecticut, hit me up like, "Yo, man, we're going to Bam Margera's house," like blah, blah, blah. And I just remember not being able to go, but there was another comedian that was going. And he was like, I was producing a show for him at the time, a live event. And I remember this before I met Bam, I remember telling him, "Take some of those business cards I gave you of mine and make sure they get to Bam." And he ended up getting it to Bam's manager. And that's how Bam's manager ended up calling me. So that first party they had, I wasn't there, but I slipped my information into that party, and it ended up in his manager's hand. That's pretty cool, you know. That's part of a story I've never really told. But let's fast forward a bit back to, you know, so they tell me about this party and that they have one coming up. And me and Bam had planned some shows in between that time. Well, I had put the shows together, and we were selling tickets to them. And as the party was coming closer, Bam received some stuff in the mail stating that he could not have the party at his house anymore, that they were going to have, you know, police shut this party down and give him a big fine and possibly arrest him, all this crazy stuff. It was at that moment that they had all the famous musicians and people. Bam paid for all these flights. He had all this money invested into this party, building the ramp. All this craziness had already been going down, and I had nothing to do with the party at that point. I was simply at his house because I knew the party was coming up, and a few days after the party, we were going to be we were touring a little bit, and some crazy shows and shit happened, and we had been planning some other shows to do afterwards. And this is after his TMZ blow up in New York and all this crazy shit. That was about March. And so April comes around for the party, and I'm staying at his house because I said if this Bam wanted me to perform the show we were doing on the road at the party, which was again like a life-altering, opportunity to now be the center of this party with thousands of people coming, and be able to host it, really. And I was all in for that. And we were supposed to go do a couple shows after the party was done. So I went and I stayed at his house 3.5 days before the party started. And there was already 100 people at the house when I got there. And that was what was insane. It was like going to be a little festival of some kind. Well, the party is being told it's not going to happen. And they say, we're not going to move it. We're just going to do it. Well, 2 days before the party, 50 state troopers in the state of Pennsylvania surrounded his entire property, helicopters. I mean, they barricaded cars around everywhere to make sure this was not going to happen.
Treated Castle Bam like it was Waco.
Yeah, pretty much. And everybody was trapped inside and couldn't leave. Bam was at his other house, but I was at the castle with everybody. And, Bam's manager, Jack, at the time, had panicked so much, he just locked himself in the upstairs room and basically was just panicking and had no idea what they were going to do.
He was just trying to wait it out.
Yeah. And at that moment, it was when I said, well, as a comedy producer in 10 years or so, I've, pretty much failed a ton of events. So if this one's already failing, this is like right up my alley. I could handle this. And I basically called Bam on his phone. I said, hey man, basically what I just said to you. And if you guys need help, I'd be more than willing to jump in and help you, get this shit resolved. And he said, yeah, go for it. Whatever you think you can do. So I ended up going out and I talked to, some of the cops that were out there, and I was like, yo, listen, Bam's not here. He's down the street at his other house, and somebody has to come back and forth and like communicate with this guy so that we can get all these people out of this property into another property, and we will do the party there. And the guy's like, if you think you can do that. So I was literally the only one allowed from property to property, and I would drive to Bam's house to talk to him, come back. I became the one who stepped up to the plate at that time. And I was trying to do so that I like earned my value with these folks. You know what I'm saying? Well,
Vinny the state trooper.
Really just like negotiating that we were going to have this all died down. And all these cops, of course, want to go home. They don't want to sit outside of Bam's house 12 hours a day, So I go to Bam and we come up with an idea. He comes up with an idea really fast to move the party to FDR Skate Park in Philly. You know what that place is, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's actually a really famous skate park.
Yeah, so we were going to move it there. The thing was, the night before at a Phillies game, a baseball game, a police officer's son was like shot and killed at the skate park, and Bam didn't know that before he like made an announcement. So he was pretty fucked,
Oof.
And that wasn't going to go down. So it was at that point I went back to the castle. I like rallied a few fans together that were hanging out to like help me. I created an office. And I had like a whiteboard and a bunch of papers and a calendar. And like I basically was like, coaching these people to make calls. And then as soon as someone had a lead, to forward it to me. So I wasn't wasting my time calling venues and all this shit. And I got on the phone with a decommissioned Navy battleship in New Jersey. A real battleship that they use for like wedding receptions and parties and shit like that. And the guy told me if I had sent him $5,000 that he would let us have the fucking party there. They didn't give a fuck what happened at this party. So I go to Bam's house and I tell Bam, before I leave the castle, I tell Jack, Bam's manager, like, dude, you better make sure you get the $5,000 from Bam's dad to send, because I'm coming back and we're sending it. Okay, I'll do it. I go to talk to Bam. I tell him about it. That's when we make a video, and Bam's basically like, my slogan was, they don't want to let us have this party on land, so we're taking it to the sea, which was so dope, and the promo for it, even with just a day, would have probably dragged over 1,000 people there, just because, it's Bam Margera. You're going to tell him, no, fuck it. If we can't have the party anywhere on land by permit, we will go to the ocean. It was just sick. And by the time I get back to Bam's house, the stage crew with CKY is already at this ship set up, and Bam's manager never got me the $5,000. the cops there, and the cops said, we don't want this happening here. We don't want this happening in New Jersey. So you have to shut it down. And basically said, if you guys don't have a deposit for this already, you could afford to shut it down. And so the people that were running the ship were like, well, we didn't get the money, might as well shut it down. And they shut it down. What a mistake. So at that point, I was just kind of like, fuck, you know. I go back, and now April is screaming at me. Bam's mom. She's just screaming at me that I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and just going hard, you know. And the crazy thing is I really didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was just the only one that was willing to step up and do anything. I remember having a panic attack in Bam's house. I remember all these people putting all this pressure on me. And I remember getting in touch with one of the guys that helped build Bam's skate park, and he told me he knew somebody that had a brewery. And it was at that point that we went down to the brewery. The cops in that city in Pennsylvania showed up there. Every city we went to, the cops showed up. But it was literally me negotiating with these police officers to let us have this thing. And we only ended up getting a few hundred people to show up. So that was really...
The whole time this is happening, your phone's blowing up because SCUMTOWN people are calling you every 4 minutes?
Yeah. Well, you know, that SCUMTOWN episode had just kind of come out and was blowing up, you know. Well, what's interesting about all of this is that that's going on, and I don't know, because I'm thinking it's just people for the party hitting me up. I really didn't know what the fuck was going on at that time. But when we got to this brewery... Actually, before, let's back up a little bit. So when Bam was doing this party, there was a point where he like was running out of only because his parents like refused to give him money for dumb shit like this, you know. So he's just got to like figure it out on his own if he wants to do something dumb. So he spent like 20 grand on the flights and all this shit. And he spent another 80 grand on the ramp and all this stuff. So he's, you know, 100 grand into this party, and he's like running thin on cash. And so I say, dude, let's just sell tickets online. So I helped him create a website, castlebamevents.com. And Bam, I like set him up so he could write a bio about what this whole party's going to be. And dude, he wrote like this whole page. And I kept telling him, yo, you're going to want to save that. Because if it like times out and deletes, like you're going to be fucked, you know? And he wasn't listening to me. And then finally the shit just times out and deletes everything he was writing. And bro, he started screaming at the top of his lungs, trashing his own house, ready to kill me, like wanted to like, looks like he was ready to choke me out. But the guy Rodney, the comedian, was there with me, so he just like didn't do anything because he's got like, you know, this other guy there with me, you know. But it looked like he wanted to beat the shit out of me, and you know, I'm the one telling him he should have saved it. So he just looks at me. He's like, I got to get the fuck out of here, man. I can't do this no more. I got to get the fuck out of here. He's like, can you stay here and read everything I just wrote? We're talking about like a whole essay on this party with piss hot tubs and fucking all this crazy shit. So I do it. And I put the site up, and he starts selling tickets, but he wasn't listening to me about how to promote the party right. He only sold 26 tickets to that party in advance. Now, when the party went bad, everybody, you know, was asking for a refund because he had moved the venue 5 times. It wasn't what he said it was going to be. Yellow Wolf didn't perform. It was me for an hour bombing on stage, and people paid $100 to $500. They just wanted their money back. So the folks that didn't ended up making it, plus all the people just trolling us, started to come to Bam for the money. Well, Bam chose at that time to try to find a scapegoat. There were other people coming to him and saying, this guy Vinny's going around trying to book you for comedy shows. He's taking deposits from comedy clubs saying you're going to go on tour with him. What's the deal with this guy? And he's like, he must have taken the money from the party. And he started like telling everybody that, you know. He actually wrote on Instagram that I took the money and went to Disney World. Everybody knows that story, you know. So it was at that point that I worries about that. I decided to play into the character for obvious reasons. But the whole time I had remembered that I had helped him make a bank account under the name Brandon Margera at like a bank that was local to him so he can get the money for the party. And so the money was there the whole time. He could have just, it wasn't much either. And it's not like he used that much, but he just, sometimes so many people are in his ear, he starts to believe bullshit as well. You know?
Well, based on how people reacted, I would have thought that there was a lot more than 26 people that wanted their money back. So
yeah, there was definitely. I mean, the tough thing is those 26 people. There were some that flew from London, from Washington State. You know, so I used to sell cars when I was young. I used to sell used cars specifically. And when you're a used car salesman, you know that if you sell a car to someone and it's really good and they love it, they'll tell like 3 to 5 people that you sold them a great car. But if you sell somebody a piece of shit that doesn't run and you fuck them over, they're going to tell like 200 people, maybe 1,000. So I just know that 26 pissed off fans could really make some roar. And then we just did SCUMTOWN too, which Bam to this day still thinks is a local Yonkers radio show because that's where we filmed it. So he has no idea that anyways. A lot of people that I actually was close with and were working with on these tour shows and trying to get involved with the business I was doing. Once I was out of the picture and people were talking ill about me, everybody started to jump on my bandwagon of Vinny's a scumbag and telling Bam horrible stories so that he would kind of start to believe it even more. But those are all people that as soon as me and Bam kind of came back together, they all started kissing my ass again. So it's a pretty crazy little circle of people that are around him.
What I don't understand is the police of where Bam lives, they can just decide you can't have a party anywhere in the fucking county.
Well, Bam had thousands of people show up to his last party, and people were parking on neighbors' lawns for miles, dude. Imagine 6 skaters just pull up in a Honda Civic and park on your front lawn and just leave their car there for 2 days as they go party at Bam's house.
But
it was definitely a problem.
But how does that affect the battleship? That's a legit venue, I thought. How do they go to the battleship?
Yeah, that is super strange. That is super strange. I think it was just something that spread amongst police officers at that point. It became really a bit... When I say, maybe 50, 60 different cop and squad cars and stuff were surrounding this guy's entire property. Is a very big property there. I just remember being there for a few days. We almost were running out of food. I had fans sneak in the woods to bring me weed and Dutches and shit, promising them they could tour around the house and stuff. It was like a little Waco situation, except there was no violence in any way.
You guys were being starved out the Castle Bam.
Pretty much, yeah.
Bam's down the street just drinking a 40 and watch the skate videos.
Well, I remember that Street Bike Tommy from Nitro Circus was there. He's a really nice guy, and he brought his food truck. He has a restaurant. He does brisket and shit. And when the party wasn't going to happen, all the angry poor skaters, there's 150 of them that have been helping make this party happen, are so hungry. And Tommy's trapped in the castle as well with his food truck. And I just remember skaters thinking about rioting and just stealing all this guy's food. And he ended up leaving the property just because of that reason. He's I'm not going to give up this food for free to these people. I'd rather go sell it at my restaurant. So fucking crazy, man.
And then what happened with Yellow Wolf? He just was there's no way I'm in the back of this
Yellow Wolf, yeah, it just wasn't what Bam said, you know what I mean? It wasn't anything Bam said it was gonna be. And I first went on stage, I did 5 minutes of comedy, I was bombing. Then I did another 5 minutes, and when they said keep going. And then I was okay, I started getting some laughs, messing with the crowd and stuff like that. And then they just told me to keep going, and another 30, 35 minutes went by. And these people aren't sitting enjoying a comedy show. They're skating in the background, and there's 150 angry people standing and watching me, waiting for Bam and Yellow Wolf to come out. And people were actually telling Bam not to come on stage with me, but he literally was I'm not leaving him up there like that. And he came on stage, and we kicked Zach ass in the balls and did all this shit and tried riling him up as much as possible. And then they kept telling me you're going to introduce Yellow Wolf. And I'll just remember there's a video of it, I'm bombing. And then I introduce Yellow Wolf, and he just comes out and doesn't perform. It says it has something to do with the sound.
He kind of just stares at the soundboard for a little bit and then walks away.
Yeah, because he wanted to paint the image that the sound wasn't good. But the thing is the people who set up the sound were the CKY sound people, and they're dude, the sound's fucking straight, bro. You're you're fine. You just don't want to do it. And then he just hung out and took pictures, and then came out to Bam's house afterwards and hung out. And so I mean, overall, I think the people that were there got a really good experience. I think it's just the people that were yapping on the internet about it that had a tough time with it.
And perhaps the people that flew across the country.
Unless you didn't think you'd be able to hang out with Bam. There is a really fucked up story that happened from all this. There was this kid that was coming to all of our comedy shows, and when we did our show in Bridgeport, Connecticut, he showed up there, and me and Bam picked him from the crowd to get kicked in the nuts on stage. And this kid, his name's Alex Jameson. Alex was a really cool dude, down to earth skater type from Connecticut, where I'm from, and we kind of linked up. And I remember him just thanking me afterwards for picking him to come on stage, and him saying he'll come to what we do as long as he can get on stage and get kicked in the nuts. And he came to a few after that, dude, everywhere we went. And he showed up to the castle party, and I'll just never forget all the chaos and everything going on at the brewery that day. And this kid came up to me, and he was crying. He's like, I just want you to know how much I've been through to get here. And he's like, I've been thinking about killing myself lately, and the only thing that I've been hanging on to is just following you guys around. And it was really fucking nuts, Lane. Like, I really...
Being kicked in the nuts by Bam Margera saved his life.
At that time, it was, and he was crying, and I ended up pulling him over to Bam and, like, forced Bam to hug him, and Bam just hung at this kid, doesn't know why, But I do remember being at Bam's castle, like, and meeting a lot of kids that were there skating, and Bam just laugh and be like, look, Vinny, and he'd pull a kid's sleeve up, and you'd see all these cuts on his arm, and Bam would tell me, like, these type of people flock to him for some reason. And I don't know if it's because he's going through rough shit, or just because he's in that, like, punk, like, genre. I don't know what it is, but he would tell me that stuff. So this kid, Alex, like, I got a little bit attached to after that conversation, because obviously he's crying his eyes out, and I have a lot going on, but it kind of made me stop and smell the roses a little bit about, like, what this means to some people. And the fucked up thing is Bam obviously canceled a few tours after that, and the next tour he canceled, like, my birthday is on April 17th, so when this episode comes out, my birthday is tomorrow. So if anybody wants to shoot me a little happy birthday on Instagram, that'd be cool. I'm turning 31, I'm getting old. But it was my birthday coming up, and Bam was going to come do a show in my state of Connecticut, in East Haven. And when he canceled that show, I got a text that weekend, and it was from the kid Alex, and he was like, hey, man, is the show happening? And I truly had so much going on, I did not answer the kid. And it was obviously something I had no idea about at the time, because I really didn't have any experience with people who, like, dealt with suicide or anything like that. But it turns out that the next day the kid did kill himself. And it was kind of fucking wild, man. Bam was struggling with drugs and alcohol pretty damn heavy. And his family and friends were coming down me pretty hard, because supposedly the kid had, like, left some notes or something behind talking about his time with me and Bam, and like how much it meant to him and that kind of stuff. So, like, a lot of his friends were coming to me saying, like, it would mean a lot if Bam was at his funeral, or Bam talked about him, but I just didn't want to tell Bam about it at the time, because I didn't want him to relapse further, go deeper in the hole, because this kid kills himself because Bam cancels a show or what. I don't know, and I don't want to blame it on that necessarily, but it all happened so fast. Luckily enough, the kid's brother started a foundation for him, and they ended up getting a skate park named after him in Connecticut, in Milford, which I thought was awesome. And I ended up telling Bam about it later on. And, still, it really even wasn't the right time. Like, he really didn't have any feelings about it. But I guess because it was the only time or first time that's ever happened to me dealing with a celebrity, it really impacted me a lot, and even still to this day. So I did talk to the brother recently and asked him to come on the podcast, and he said he would. So who knows? Maybe in the next few weeks we'll be able to get him on here and just talk to him about what his side of things were like, and, just what he feels, and maybe just talk about his brother a little bit, we
won't have to kick him in the nuts when he's here, but we can talk about it a little bit.
Well, rest in peace, Alex Jameson.
See, that's the side of the story you didn't know. That was after Viva La Scam? Like, after you guys...
Yeah, it was like a few weeks, like 2 weeks. Yeah, like 2 weeks. And I held on to that for a while, man. That was something I held on to for a long time, and still to this day definitely impacts me, because for some reason, between my friends, family, and just people I've met through Bam, I've had a lot of people come to me suicidal since then, and I take it too seriously. Like, I'm trying to text and talk to people, but it's just a scary thing to become involved in, because you don't know if something you're going to say is going to cause them to do something like that,
Well, it's definitely not your responsibility as someone that's like an entertainer to, feel like you have to be there for everyone that says they're suicidal, or to feel responsible if someone does commit suicide. The impact makes sense, and the correlation makes sense, but in the grand scheme of things, I mean, someone like Bam, like you said, everywhere he goes, there's kids with cut marks up their arms. how many of those kids have committed suicide, you know what I mean? And how often
It was
can
actually
we attribute
it was
what?
it was a really it was a really dark time for me as well. I mean, I had been going through this court case where I had gotten arrested before meeting Bam, and I got arrested for selling weed, and they thought that I was doing a lot worse because of the money I was making from working with celebrities and running shows and things like that. And when I say them, I mean the police. My actual bond for my case was $350,000 when they raided my home. And I ended up getting a very good lawyer and fighting the case. And I was about a week and a half away from getting it shut down. And in the middle of staying at Bam's and being trapped at the house, a comedian friend of mine, which if you go back and listen to the SCUMTOWN podcast, episode 3, I talk about this story. A friend of mine was a comedian. We snuck off the property and drove to Lancaster to perform with the Reverend Bob Levy. He's a comedian from the Howard Stern show. We snuck off Bam's property with all the cops around to go there and do this show. So yeah, me and a good buddy of mine were sneaking off the property to go to the show in Lancaster with the Reverend Bob Levy from the Howard Stern show. And we drove out to the show, and on the way back, a state trooper had been following us the entire time from Bam's house and back. Had no idea what we were doing, and they ended up pulling us over, and I was supposed to just get a speeding ticket, but my buddy had some weed on him and ended up saying that we were smoking it in the car when we weren't, and I got arrested for a DUI.
And how did that go?
Dude, that reopened the case from Connecticut. I almost went to jail for a long time, had felonies, everything. I just did every single thing I was supposed to do. I was driving to Lancaster from Connecticut once a month to do classes and community service, and I was doing all kinds of community service in Connecticut and doing fundraiser comedy shows, and just was doing everything I could not to lose my family and go to jail. And I just remember
when you were leaving Castle Bam.
Yeah, no, I went back to Castle Bam after this happened.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the middle of all of this. We went to do the show in Lancaster. We get arrested. My rental car got towed, and we basically get out of jail and go back to Bam's house and just explain to everybody what happened. I just remember Bam being like, "Well, you're stupid. What are you doing with weed in the car?" And I didn't even know we had it. Now, if I had weed, I would have had it in the car. But every night I would go back to Bam's castle, and the skaters there would be doing a poker game in the middle of the night. Every night I'd go play. And one of the guys there sold weed, so I didn't need to bring it out of the castle. I didn't need to do that. But the kid I was with was just a little frugal and hid his weed in his pocket and didn't tell anybody he had weed. He was one of those kind of guys, and he kind of just snitched on me when we got pulled over.
See, in California, it's so common to have weed on you at all times that you never even think about, oh, I can't have weed on me. It's people worry about having scales and stuff like that on them.
They did end up in Connecticut. They threw out the case in, so I was a week away from getting my case thrown out in Pennsylvania, and I had court in Connecticut. And my lawyer's like, "Vinny, it's been 2.5 years. We fought and fought and fought. They want to give you 90 days in jail, and you have to take 2 felonies on your record." And I was just like, dude, I am not doing that. I didn't take I was ready to go to trial. I was like, I'm not going to jail for 10 minutes. I'm fat. I got fucking breasts. I'm going to either die fighting or I'm going to be someone's bitch. I don't know what's going to fucking happen. And I just was not going to jail. And he basically was like, "All right, well, let's try to get it postponed to see if you can get that case thrown out in Pennsylvania." And luckily I did. I got it thrown out the next week. I went back to court in Connecticut. They finally threw everything out, and I was a free man after that.
You beat the Viva la Scam bust. You beat the case.
Yeah, I did.
You got away with it.
I got away with everything so far, knock on wood. I don't want to jinx myself because there's probably still some shit that fall under my statute of limitations, but for now...
it'll just be civil if they come for the Castle Bam money. Don't worry about that. They can't get you for that.
I don't think it'd be that. I think it would just be more petty things I've done in my life that none of you have ever heard about. The people are like, "Wait a minute, he's he's doing this now? He's talking about it?" I don't know. But also, what me and another friend were talking about the other day is a lot of the people that I've scammed in the past were just so embarrassed to come forward and say that I've done that to them, so they just would hold it in for so long or never say it because a lot of the perception is that I've scammed new comedians, but there have been plenty of like veteran comics that needed something
TJ
switched
Miller?
up in the game. No, he didn't pay me. I had to pay TJ. That's actually a funny story, man. I know I told you a few weeks ago I was interested in talking about that. I had to pay him. But with people with that kind of stature, Lane, if you're paying to work with someone like that, it ups your kind of like, what do you call that? Like you're standing in the business to work with someone. Yeah, your clout, And so basically, TJ Miller, the first celebrity that I ever really worked with. He's one of my favorite comedians, like stand-up comedians of all time. Have you ever watched his stand-up back in the day, or were you a fan of his? Or
I think I saw him on Premium Blend when I was a kid. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he had like a lot of stand-up on YouTube that was posted from like gigs he's done, and some of that shit is really, really funny. The improv he used to do, and that was a lot of the stuff I would listen to when I got into performing stand-up. And to backtrack a little bit, in 2015, I was managing a comedy club in New Haven that was going to have a grand opening, and I found out a theater down the road was going to have TJ Miller there, and TJ actually is one of those comedians who'd rather perform more shows in a weekend at a smaller club rather than doing one big theater show. There are some comedians that would rather have an intimate room with only 100 people in them. They'd rather do the show 6 times to get the same money they would in a big theater. You know what I'm saying? So they perform 2 shows on Friday, 2 shows Saturday, and 1 Sunday when they can just do one big show in a theater. Some comedians prefer to do the smaller shows. Maybe they feel like they get better laughs or something. I don't know what it is. But I had heard through the grapevine that TJ actually liked that. And so I tried to convince the owners of the club to book him. And they had a $10,000 grand opening, but they ended up going against me and picking Carla Falcione from the VH1 show Mob Wives to come and do some event there. And it flopped. Nobody showed up to it. But I quit the comedy club. And I always said to myself, if I ever opened my own comedy club, that would be what I do, So a few years later in 2018, I found a place in South Windsor, Connecticut that was like a family entertainment center. They had a bowling alley, arcades, axe throwing, pool tables, bars. It was like a whole compound upstate Connecticut filled with stuff to do for people. And they had 5 different banquet rooms that were being unused for most of the year. So there was like a small room that fit 100 people, and there was a big room that fit up to like 350 people. So I came up with an idea for them to have like a comedy club inside of the place. And they said, well, we have events sometimes. Okay, well, if there's an event in this room, I'll do a show in that room that night, and so forth. You know what I'm saying? So I could run as many shows as I want. And we inked the deal, and we were doing shows there every single week. And we were making money just off shows with local comedians like crazy. I mean, this club was going really well. And it was at that time that I just was on Twitter one day, and I seen that it was like 3 years after trying to book TJ, but I seen that he was in New Jersey that same week that I was looking. It was like a Tuesday, and he was in New Jersey on Friday and Saturday, but this comedy club did not book him on Sunday. And I said, oh shit, this guy lives in LA, but he's free on Sunday. Let me see if I can get a hold of him. I mean, I tried every way. I called his agency. His sister's a comedian. I tried hitting her up. Everybody that I tried to talk to, nobody was getting me in touch with this guy. Until finally, I went on his website and I found out that his opening act, his name is CJ Sullivan. His opening act is like on tour with him. So I hit up the opening act and I'm like, hey man, I got this show for you guys on Sunday. I would pay you, come to Connecticut and perform. And the guy says to me, well, where is the show exactly in Connecticut? And I said, it's in South Windsor. And believe it or not, TJ's opener, he's like originally from South Windsor, Connecticut. That is the town he grew up in. Like his parents still live there. It was the weirdest coincidence ever. So he's like, I would love to go home and see my parents. So I'll hit up TJ and I'll let you know. I chalked it up like nothing was going to happen. I hadn't like done any shows with celebrities at that point. I did tell you the story about working with No Legs Jimmy and meeting Adam Sandler, and that had happened previously, but I didn't like work on a show with a celebrity yet, And I ended up I was playing 2K one day and I got a message on Facebook from TJ Miller, and he hits me up and he's like, hey man, if this show is serious, give me a call. And I gave him a call and he's like, how do I know this is real? And I'm like, dude, you know, you never met anybody as motivated as me. Like, I would love to make this happen. He goes, well, you only have 5 days to promote the show. And I was like, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Like, this would be an opportunity in my career. Of course I'm going to say yes. So he said, okay, well, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning. He goes, I'm going to be in New York City today until 5 o'clock. I'm going to give you an address to meet me. You need to bring me $1,000. At 5:01, I'm leaving the place, and I'm not doing the show. You will give me $3,000 total for the show. You'll give me $1,000 today, and you'll give me the other $2,000 at the show. So we hung up the phone, and Lane, I had $1 on me in my pocket. You know, I didn't have any money. And I just, you know, can you imagine somebody who's like your hero or something is telling you that they'll do a show with you?
From $1, you managed to make the show happen?
Well, I ended up calling. So this is where Scumbag Vinny comes into play. I ended up calling a comedian.
Here we go.
I ended up, yeah, exactly. I ended up calling a comedian in Rhode Island and, you know, promising him a spot on the show if he would give me the money to give to TJ, you know? And like for a comedian that's been trying to get your big break, if you got the money, this is your big break, you know? So the comedian, who I will have remain anonymous just for his own integrity purposes, he said yeah. So I basically drove out to Rhode Island, got the money from him. And the scumbag that I am, as soon as I touched the $1,000, I immediately started thinking about other things I can do with the money. Like, oh, I can go bet this football game tonight. I don't really have to go see TJ, do I? But no, I did, and I went through with it. But I also picked up an eighth of weed first and had no money for gas to get from Rhode Island to New York. I already drove from Connecticut to Rhode Island. So I stop in Connecticut, I pick up weed, I fill up the tank, I grab some food. I'm like running late to get to TJ, and I already have like $900 with like singles and shit all wrapped up, and it was a mess. We get to New York, and this is the coolest part of the story. TJ actually gave me directions to this Japanese barbecue place, and when I went there, he had the entire restaurant closed. Okay? 10 servers, 3 large round tables filled with food, a whole buffet. And when I walk in the place, he's literally acting like himself from Silicon Valley. And he's like, Vinny, Beedle! He's like throwing like, I can almost picture him. I don't think he did, but like throwing confetti in the air almost. Like he was celebrating that I was there. His arms and legs are swinging in the air and he's doing like this little march and he's just going crazy and everybody's laughing. And I walk in and I'm like, hey man, what's going on? He's like, oh no, sit down. And sit down. He's making me eat this food I never ate before. And he's like, talk to me, man. Talk to me. You know, I'm interested in hearing your story. And for 45 minutes, just sat there listening to me about what my ideas were, what I thought about the business and what I wanted to accomplish. And this guy's it was surreal, man. He's just sitting there listening to me as we're just pigging out on all this food. And then it's when I realized, like, I'm here for business with him. So I hand him the money and he's like, what the hell's this? You know, $900, like I said, all like small bills and shit. And I'm like, hey man, that's the best I can do. You know, I wasn't going to say that until I got here, but there's about 900 there. And he kept it on the envelope and he starts laughing. And that's when I realized he probably spent more on that lunch than I was even paying him for the gig. Does that make sense to you? Like,
yeah, it was
paint the picture,
like a proof of entry type of thing.
He just wanted to meet me, and what the story he told me was that the guy that originally got him into comedy as a headliner and booked him for the first time had recently passed away, and that he just had some feelings inside that he wanted to pass it on and help somebody else make it. And this is a conversation this guy had with me. And he's like, so I randomly chose you. And he's like, I have people who open for me on tour all the time. I have friends I work in with movies and TV. But I just want to help somebody who has nothing and hasn't made it, and I want to help them make it. So I was just kind of like starstruck and just a little like, wow. So I left that meeting with him like, yeah, man, we'll be there in 5 days. I'll keep this money in this envelope. And please try to just give me the $3,000 and $100 bills when I see you, and then I'll hand this mess back to you. Like, he didn't even spend the money that I gave him. He just held it as like a deposit. And in 5 days, without him posting, tweeting, anything on Instagram, not even a story post about it, I was able to sell 300 tickets in 5 days to this show.
So what happened? TJ showed up and he handed you back the wad of cash and was like, you did it, kid.
Well, it didn't really end there, man. I mean, as soon as he showed up, we did the show. And And we hung out all night. It was great. I mean, it was a lifetime experience. He got paid. I made like damn near $6,000 on the fucking show. It was that good. It was a great night of comedy. The guy that I promised the spot on the show got on the show. Like, everybody got what they were promised that night. And afterwards, TJ, when I was performing on stage, TJ came out of the green room and was watching me. And afterwards, he came up to me and he was like, Vinny, that was really, really good. He's like, I would love for you to come on tour with me. He said, but I have to see you perform in New York City first. I need to know that you can do this in the city. And if you can, I'll take you on tour, all this stuff. So we had tried to coordinate doing this show together in New York so he can see me, and it never really happened. And then one day he gave me a call and he said, hey, I'm going to be in this festival in New Jersey, the Hoboken Comedy Festival, which is one of like the most famous festivals on the East Coast, and people get seen to go into like independent film or TV from this festival. Like, it's a really just festival to get accepted into. And he's like, I'm going to put you on the show with me, and then I'll get to see you there, and that'll be good enough. And if you do well there, I'll take you on tour with me. And it was that point that like a few days later, the head of the festival called me and was like, just because you're friends with TJ Miller doesn't mean you get to be on this shit. You know how many people wait years for this, and like just bitch me down and took me off of it, So after
they
that,
didn't let
TJ
scumbag Vinny Beedle on the festival. That's
no,
fucked up.
they didn't. And
was
after
it because
that,
of a personal grudge of the people that worked there?
I had no idea who they were. No, it was simply a thing. Like, I skipped the line. You get what I'm saying? Like, I skipped the line, and that wasn't, cool with them, which I understood. And a friend of mine owns a comedy club in Salt Lake City, Utah. They had TJ booked there. I told him I would fly out there myself. I had a place to stay there. Let me do those shows. He said, okay. And before that happened, he contacted me. He was like, you know what, man? He's like, I have to be in Connecticut for a little while anyway. It was like when he was going through some court stuff in Connecticut. He had some shit going on there. He's like, so I'll come back and have another show with you it'll be a weekend, 2 days in a row. We'll do it in Connecticut. You can pay me again. It'll be kick-ass. I'll promote it this time. It's going to be awesome. So I set up the shows, and then he has to postpone them to one show during the middle of the week. And he asked me to make up a flyer, and I pay for this amazing flyer with like TJ Miller, and the little dots in his name are Deadpool faces. And he was like in love with it, loved it. He's like, this is going to be kick-ass. Let's do it. He ended up canceling the show on me, and I had to refund all 300 people. We sold out again. And when he canceled the show, he told me it was because he had somebody in his immediate family that was very sick. But that night he was at a club in New York City performing, So at that point, I was like, fuck, TJ. Yeah, you little faggot. Anyways.
Why even, that's the thing with like, Ian Ellis was in LA, and Tony Hinchcliffe pulled him aside when they were starting Kill Tony and was like promising him, like, you help me make flyers and promote this, and like you'll be a part of this thing. And then it's like, why even promise all that? If you have thousands of dollars to afford to pay people to do this or that, why even promise me like, oh, I chose you, Vinny. You're the chosen one. Like, just pay me $3,000 to open for you one time, and be done with it. Why do
I do believe that. The energy I had is that he really wanted to do those things. What I've learned from celebrities like him is there's always other factors and people at play that help you make those decisions. Meaning that, there were times that he wanted me to do it, and his agent or his wife or somebody was like, you've helped the kid enough. Enough's enough. You know what I mean? That's how I kind of read the situation, because afterwards, I got hooked right up with Artie right after him. That's how I got hooked up with Artie. Really. Because he gave me a list of celebrities to work with, and I was on the list, and I wanted Artie to be the guy. And so after that, I ended up with Bam. And when I went through a real big struggles with Bam, I hit up TJ, and I'm like, dude, you fucking, you dogged me. You owe me, man. He's like, you said you were going to help me. And he's like, I did help you. And like, I think that was him saying like he has followed me and seen that I have done other things I probably wouldn't have been able to do had I not, kept parlaying one into the other.
Yeah, well, Cloverfield was average at best, so who cares?
Actually, I'm still a big fan of the guy, believe it or not. I am.
No, he's not a terrible guy. I wouldn't say he's one of my favorite comedians by any means, or I even think he's super funny, but he is in good movies. occasionally.
Yeah,
and he's not bad in it.
yeah, yeah. So he's basically had, a lot of, good stuff happen, not super great stuff, but like, he even did a special on HBO that kind of tanked a little bit, but you still have a special on HBO, so he's definitely earned his keep that way in the business. And what's funny is before I even worked with TJ, I was obsessed with this show Crashing on HBO, which is about a comedian who started off by selling tickets on the street and passing out flyers and ends up meeting TJ Miller, and TJ kind of bumps him up a level, and they do this show in New York, and TJ kind of leaves him there with Artie Lang, of all people. And then the guy starts crashing on Artie's house, and then one thing led to another, and it kept parlaying into these other things.
And then he goes to Bam Margera's house.
No, that's the weird thing, man. That's where it kind of changed up. But I was watching that show, and I remember sitting there with my wife one day, and we were in our apartment in Connecticut, and I said to her, I was like, doesn't it feel like this is like me? I used to sell tickets and do the flyer thing. Doesn't it seem like this could be me? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, it would be great if I could work with these guys. Like, I almost manifested it, man, because it literally happened just like that. And I would tell you, go watch that show Crashing, just so you watch it, you'll be like, holy shit, this show is has got so many eerie similarities with Vinny, and it was happening right around the show was still filming too. It was kind of crazy.
Life imitates art. You're destined to be the character from Crashing.
I guess so. He's probably had a lot better things happen to him since, but Bam's what made that take a turn for the once I started working with Bam, I just kind of felt like I had reached a pop culture height when it came to people I was able to work with. There are a lot of people in Hollywood that would not dare to work with somebody that isn't a manager, agent, producer, even professional comedian. These guys were coming around me because they were all going through something at the time, and a lot of the people around them were telling them no, so they wanted to find somebody that would tell them yes, and that is an enabler by definition. So whatever it was they were using me for, I was using them for the same type of thing, and that's why it was kind of working. But at the same time, like, TJ was great, huge celebrity to work with. Then you meet Artie, it's like legend, and then you meet Bam, and it's like, pop culture wise, how could I really top this,
Start hanging out with Will Smith on his rise back to the top after slapping Chris Rock, I guess, is the only way.
As a matter of fact, you're absolutely right about that. Will Smith needs Vinny Beedle management services. That is for sure.
I feel like there's a lot of people this year that are going to need Vinny Beedle management services. Vinny Beedle, do you know what's going on with Andy Dick?
I do not. What's going on with Andy Dick?
So Andy Dick is a sad shell of a man. He married some girl that was a former intern from the Howard Stern show, strictly off of the clout. Like, she promised him some type of clout off of it. Pretty sure Andy Dick is gay, at least bisexual. And so they're married, and this girl does YouTube shows for 25 people. Long story short, this goes nowhere for a year, and then Andy Dick's living with this girl in Las Vegas. He's trying to buy drugs or something on the streets of Las Vegas, gets beat up and mugged for $15, comes back to the house with a swollen face. She goes live on YouTube and puts him on YouTube and is like, Andy, you need help. So now he's not living with the fake wife anymore, and Andy Dick is currently living with a random fan in his living room, and they're streaming 24/7 from the computer in the living room and taking donations as Andy Dick just gets drunk and watches himself in old movies on the TV and talks shit to the people that are letting him live there for free. And it's really a crazy situation. And
I
he has
have
no
to
management.
Watch this.
I can send
Is
you
it on
links,
YouTube
Vinny.
anywhere? Yeah,
it's
please.
they're probably streaming right now. They were streaming earlier today.
If you're saying that this is my comeback into the management world is Andy Dick, I'll go for it.
I'm saying they're already live doing shows. They just have no direction, and they might need a manager.
Andy Dick, don't worry, help is on the way, my friend.
We're gonna save Andy Dick. That's exactly what I said. I was like, this man's like being held hostage. It looks like he's being a prisoner in his own house. Like he's being forced to be married to this girl he doesn't want to be married to. This guy isn't like sleeping on a cot in the living room watching reruns of his own TV shows on the TV. Like it looks like some sort of fucked up torture. And like someone needs to save Andy Dick. And maybe it's us. Maybe we'll save Andy Dick. We'll see what we can do.
I wonder who these people are that are around him. Like, how do we find this stream?
Oh, I have it.
Oh, I think they're live right now.
This is the type of weird shit that Andy Dick's doing. That's what I'm saying. He needs to be saved.
What is happening? I feel like the guy in the captain's hat is the Vinny Beedle of the situation right now.
I think he might be. I think he might be the guy whose house it is. He's lost himself in the last 3 days. Now that he's getting $1,900 donated for Andy Dick being in the living room, he doesn't know what to do with himself. He's dressed up in costumes. He's got guests over. He's letting Andy Dick smoke in the living room. He was threatening to beat him up for smoking and drinking in the house the other day.
No way. Are you serious?
Yeah, dude, that's what I'm saying. This is some sort of weird trying to call you scumbag Vinny the enabler. This is enabling.
We got to get this guy on the like totally disguise it as like promoting his stream, you know what I mean?
Oh, I think it's just early enough that we can absolutely do that.
And just totally use my TikTok and my views as a way to tell, this is gonna pop off, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah,
Who the fuck is this guy?
Oh, this is the guy whose house it is, the guy with no shirt on. So that means they found the captain over there, just I guess on the street in Las Vegas to come hang out with Andy.
Holy shit.
These are probably there's like this whole community of people that stream 24/7 and get swatted and stuff like that, and they're kind of surrounding themselves with Andy Dick right now. So
the other thing you really do to get their attention at this time is to like throw $50 on the stream every like 10 hours and with a message like call me Andy's management now, and as like every time, then you up it to 100 after a few, and then they're like, whoa, this guy he means business, you know what I mean? Let's give him a call, bring their stream up to 2,300 or some shit like that.
This is starting to get weird. Andy was just kissing the captain on his back. I don't know if I want to watch this for too long. This could get
guy just donated $1. Do you really think so?
I don't know. Andy's a weirdo. Andy was saying the other night the guy that lived here was asleep in a recliner, and Andy was saying he was going to pull his balls out and suck his balls.
Get out of here. Have you been watching it?
I watched it a little bit on the first night. I watched it. There was only like 4 people watching.
I got to be honest with you.
Bunch.
I probably will be stopping this podcast in the next 5 minutes just to start watching this.
Yeah, I don't know where this is going to go, but I feel like this is prime real estate for a Vinny Beedle.
Now, where are they streaming on exactly? Twitch?
This is on YouTube, but they're using that Streamlabs OBS app.
I see. Unreal. Did you see what's happening with Ice Poseidon, the IRL streamer, the famous IRL streamer? Did you see what's happening with him or no?
Last time I saw, he had a cryptocurrency scam that he was getting exposed for.
Yeah, he basically just like stole $300,000 from his fans and like admitted to it scumbag Vinny style. It's like, you're not gonna do anything about it. Crazy. For me, you see a lot of these big streamers are getting involved with scams now for sure.
Well, even regular celebrities are getting involved in scams. I mean, based on the perspective, like if you're Will Smith and you're going live on YouTube taking donations, you're scamming.
For sure. I'm fascinated with the Andy Dick stuff.
I love that that's got hooked. I think that might be something. There might be something there. I feel like, I've had friends from With Apologies talk to Andy Dick before. Like several times. Yeah, Andy Dick's very easy to get in touch with. So if you could just get his ear, that's all we need, I think. The Vinny Beedle will do the rest.
Well, if you think about it, man, TJ ain't doing too bad. Already ended up in obviously in jail for crimes he committed, but he's out and he's clean out of rehab. Bam's in rehab doing real good. So running into me might not be a bad thing for old Andy Dick.
Hashtag save Andy Dick might actually be a bit of a good idea. I'm gonna look into this. I'm gonna see how we can get a hold of.
The problem with the people working with him now is they're totally like exploiting his gayness by walking around with no shirt on or having this guy with a captain's hat, no underwear. But like, it's not business. These are just people Andy needs to be hanging out with.
Yeah, these are just regular people that know that if they are streaming stuff 24/7, people will donate. These aren't people that like entertain, or they're not previously from anywhere. They've found Andy Dick on the street basically, and they're trying to make like a career out of it. So, if people are going to do that, we might as well make it a real career and not like a freak show. I feel like that's a fair scam. To be absolutely to be taking it on the road versus, hey, look, you're a walking freak show now. I don't know if that's the life Andy Dick deserves after everything he contributed to 90s entertainment. Surely
I think I have homework this week now, Lane. I think this is going to be our first episode that leave people wanting more to hear what happens next week. I think next week is going to be all about Andy Dick and how I've progressed through the week becoming his new manager. I just want to work with some celebrity that's going to get me on Science Entertainment again, so that like even if he doesn't remember me from the other night, that as soon as he reads about me, his brain's going to like click, and the retardedness is just going to make him remember the argument.
Is this that guy that said he throws all
that I smashed? Is this the guy I smashed that's claimed to fame with he drove Bam?
Is SCUMTOWN still a thing? That was my favorite part when you guys fought.
That was my favorite thing because SCUMTOWN is such a large podcast. I think we should wrap it up tonight, man. I'm gonna be doing my Andy work shit, my Andy Dick work tonight, and Andy work shit. What was I saying?
You're gonna be doing dick work.
I'm gonna be doing dick work tonight and all week trying to figure out how I can lure Andy Dick to Orlando, Florida, and if anything, just have him sit on live stream making more money than he is now. For them to be up there for 3 days and only make $2,000, I know that sounds like a lot, but for Andy Dick, I feel like he could be doing a lot better.
Put Andy Dick on Whatnot and start selling just
have him auctioning off my Disney toys.
Exactly. That might actually make a killing.
Oh, dude, I think it really would. Why wouldn't it? It's literally just Cameo, except if you're not famous, you could just sell fucking toys and baseball cards and shit. It's just a live app that you can make money off of people on. It's interesting, and we're doing well with it. So
you might actually have to pitch that to Andy Dick. Like, look, come do my Whatnot show.
Oh, I have a live show tonight. Yeah, exactly. He's gonna be sitting there drunk as fuck with like 1,000 Disney toys around him. Like, what the fuck am I doing?
All you have to do is just coach him and get bids. just
be like, Andy, this is it, man. I could refer you as a seller.
And then it's like the
look what he's doing now, dude. He's just sitting in a room full of half-naked men for money. You know what I mean?
At least then the people are buying something from him. You know what I mean? And it seems more
and if it is men that he's interested in on the side, there's plenty of gay dudes buying Disney toys on that app. Like, he can meet and mingle with,
That's what I'm saying. There's going to be a lot of collectors on there that are probably going to be excited to see Andy Dick.
I'd probably take Andy Dick to Disney World to shoot promos for the sales. Like we're at the Magic Kingdom with Andy Dick. Join me tonight at 9:00 for the Whatnot auction. But I'll put the Whatnot. I'll send you the Whatnot link, and we'll put it in the description so people could come and bid on some of my toys. And that would help me out tremendously. But Lane, thank you very much for everything that you do and another great episode of the show. And
we learned a lot tonight.
Yeah, we did, man. We did. We definitely did. And it was definitely a big name drop episode once again. We got plenty of clips. Yeah, we got plenty of clips with 90s heroes. You know what I mean? So we're going to be able to capitalize off this week.
Everyone might say that you're hanging on to people more famous than you, but really all the people that you're associated with, they're not going to ever be as famous as they used to be. And not even Bam, TJ Miller, Artie Lang,
Andy Dick.
These aren't people that are ever going to be more than working.
They already were.
Vinny. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If anything, What I actually believe, and people are going to say I sound crazy for this, is that one day if I do make it to a higher level where a lot of people know who I am, people will, like, it's almost like I give them a chance to be relevant again. Like my story, if my story goes out there and blows up, all these famous people I've crossed paths with will be highlighted at some point again. As a matter of fact, if there was a Scumbag Vinny movie, I'm pretty sure everybody will be available to play themselves. It's
exactly. They won't be busy.
Yeah, none of them are going to be super swamped with a big project where they can't take, $1 million to play themselves in my biopic. But
everybody except Uncle Jeff, R.I.P. Uncle Jeff,
Uncle Jimmy, yeah,
Uncle Jimmy, Uncle Jimmy. Goddamn, so disrespectful.
Well, you know what? At that point, it would be traditional to just go about it the same way Adam Sandler did and just fax a bunch of hospitals looking for the next no-legged guy to take another part in a movie. There's somebody out there could play Uncle Jim. But R.I.P. Uncle Jim, Uncle Jeff. I'll see you next week, Lane. Thanks, buddy.
Take it easy.